You don't realize how deep a wound can go until you've been cut by the one person you trusted most. I thought I knew Audrey, my daughter, my own flesh and blood. But on New Year's Eve, she played me for a fool, and that's when I decided to make her remember this. I wasn't going to let her walk all over me anymore. Not after everything. It started like any other holiday. The smell of turkey in the oven, the soft glow of the Christmas tree lights flickering in the corner. But then, out of nowhere, Audrey fell, right in front of the living room TV. She crumpled like a rag doll, clutching her leg like it was broken. She wailed like a banshee. I rushed over, panic rising in my chest. But something wasn't right. The way she cried, it wasn't real. She wasn't hurt. She was faking it. I could see the glint of a grin in her eyes just before she turned her head. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening in the comments. I knelt down beside her. What happened? Are you okay? I asked, my voice shaking. She looked up at me, wide-eyed. I don't know, Dad. There's so much mess everywhere. I think I twisted my ankle. Can't you help me? A mess? The house was clean, but of course it didn't matter. Audrey was always good at twisting the story to fit her needs. I stood there, feeling the weight of the years of everything I'd given her, all for nothing. That's when it hit me. She wasn't playing a victim. She was trying to control me, and she thought I was stupid enough to fall for it. I promised myself one thing right then and there. She had no idea what she was up against. She thought she could pull the wool over my eyes. But I was done being her pawn. That night, I made a decision. She'd regret this moment more than she could imagine. I never thought my own daughter would pull something like this. You know, when you've been around as long as I have, when you've built bridges, managed teams, traveled the world in a job that demanded precision, you get used to spotting a lie from a mile away. But Audrey, she thought she could outsmart me with her little stunt, and I wasn't going to let that slide. She played the helpless daughter card hard. Dad, I can't move, I'm stuck here. She said it with a perfect mix of panic and fake fragility. So I played along for a second, even though every fiber of my being was screaming that something was off. I helped her to couch, but every time I glanced down at her, I saw a different story. The way she winced every time I wasn't looking. It was too rehearsed. It didn't add up. I could tell she wasn't actually in pain. Hell, the way she kept asking for food, for the remote, for a foot massage, it felt like I was catering to a diva, not my daughter. She didn't want me to help. She wanted me to serve her. And the worst part? She wasn't even trying to hide it. She thought I was dumb enough to miss it. But here's the kicker. I knew I couldn't just call her out. Not yet. I had to gather evidence. I had to see just how far she'd go. So, while she napped on the couch, probably faking sleep, I slipped out the back door and made the call. I didn't even tell her. I called the paramedics. When they showed up, Audrey was all wide-eyed innocence. I'm so sorry to bother you, but I think I've hurt my leg badly. She began like she was auditioning for an Oscar. The paramedics were professionals. They went through the motions, checking her over, and then they dropped the bomb. No signs of any injury. They said, "You're fine. No swelling. No bruising." Audrey's face faltered for a second, just a flash, but she quickly masked it with a smile. "Could you, just write something down for my dad?" she asked sweetly, reaching for her wallet. That's when I saw it. She was trying to bribe them. She offered them $500 to write a fake report. The paramedics, though, weren't stupid. They knew what was going on, and they were too professional to fall for it. I stood there, watching the whole thing unfold in front of me. My own daughter, trying to buy her way out of the truth. The anger that surged through me was the kind you can't ignore. It's the kind that leaves you cold inside. And right then, I knew this wasn't about a twisted ankle. This was about control. And she wasn't going to get away with it. The moment the paramedics left, I knew I had a choice. I could let her get away with this. I could give her the money and pretend like nothing happened. Let her believe that this kind of manipulation would work on me. Or I could put an end to it once and for all. As Audrey lounged on the couch, acting like she was still recovering from the fall, I stood there staring at her. My mind was racing. It wasn't just about the money or the fact that she tried to deceive me. It was about the principle. She thought she could bully me into submission, and that wasn't going to happen. I could feel the tension building in the room, heavy and thick. I wasn't angry, not exactly. I was disappointed. In her. In myself for not seeing this sooner. I had raised her, taught her right from wrong. And now, she was twisting everything we had into something ugly. She looked up at me, her eyes wide and innocent. Dad, I don't know what to do. I'm in so much pain. I can't even walk, and I can't get to the doctor. Please, can you just give me the money? I don't know where else to turn. Her voice was all sweet desperation, but I wasn't falling for it anymore. Not after what I had just seen. And that's when it hit me. She wasn't just asking for money. She was blackmailing me, threatening to ruin me over something she made up. I could have given her the $15,000. Hell, I could have just paid her off and told her to get out of my life. But that's not how you teach someone a lesson. I wasn't going to be her ATM or her punching bag. I took a deep breath and walked over to her. Audrey, I said, my voice steady, you're not getting any money from me. Her eyes narrowed, and I could see the anger flicker behind her fake tears. What do you mean? I need it, Dad. You can't just leave me like this. No, I replied calmly. I'm not going to bail you out. You've got 30 days. 30 days to find a job, get your own place, and pay your own way. No handouts. No excuses. She looked at me, stunned, her face twisted in disbelief. What? You can't be serious. I'm your daughter. I'm your father, I said, voice firm. And I've been enabling you for too long. This ends now. The silence in the room was suffocating. Audrey stared at me, her jaw clenched, probably trying to process what I just said. For the first time, I saw fear in her eyes. Real fear. And I knew, deep down, that this would be the turning point for her. It was time for her to face the consequences. Good luck, I added, turning on my heel and walking out of the room. I didn't look back. I wasn't about to play her game anymore. And she knew it. The days after I gave Audrey my ultimatum were strange. It's hard to describe the feeling of watching someone you've loved your whole life crumble under the weight of their own choices. But that's exactly what was happening. She didn't scream, didn't beg. She just went silent. For the first few days, I didn't hear from her at all. Not a phone call, not a message, nothing. I half expected her to show up at my door, crying, apologizing, begging me to take back what I'd said. But it never came. Instead, it was like she vanished into thin air. And it made me uneasy. I kept my distance. The silence fell heavy, like a cold wind blowing through the house. The Christmas decorations still hung in the living room, half-heartedly festive, like a bad memory that just won't leave. I'd sit at the kitchen table, sipping my coffee, waiting for the inevitable storm to come. But nothing. I thought about the time I had spent with Audrey, the vacations, the Christmases, the Sunday afternoon spent fixing things around the house. I had given everything to her, and now I was the one left picking up the pieces. Then, after what felt like an eternity, she called. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. Her name lit up in bold letters, and for a moment I hesitated. Was this the call where she finally admitted her mistake? Or was she going to try and manipulate me again? I answered it, holding my breath. Dad, I found a job. Her voice was quieter than usual, almost tentative. I'm moving out. I'm going to pay my own way. I'm sorry for everything. The words hit me like a punch in the gut. It wasn't the apology I'd expected. It was better, real, genuine. She wasn't asking for forgiveness. She was admitting the truth. I let the silence linger for a moment, absorbing the weight of it. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to say I was proud of her, that I was glad to hear she was taking responsibility. But another part of me, the part that had been betrayed, wanted to remind her of everything she had put me through. You've got a long way to go, Audrey, I finally said, but I'm glad you're starting. Just don't expect me to fix everything for you anymore. There was a pause on the other end of the line, and for the first time in a long while, I heard a small, relieved sigh. I know, and thank you, Dad. I really mean it. I wouldn't have done this if you hadn't been so hard on me. That's when I realized the silence hadn't been a sign of defeat. It was a sign of change. And maybe, just maybe, this was a first step toward healing. The following weeks were quieter than I expected. Audrey's decision to change wasn't an overnight transformation. I didn't expect it to be. I watched from a distance, waiting to see if she was really serious or just biding her time until the next chance to manipulate me. But something in her was different, a quiet determination that hadn't been there before. She found a job, like she said, a real one, not some minimum wage gig, but a solid position working for a small tech firm. She moved into a small apartment not far from my place, and the calls I got from her were unexpected, polite, respectful. She even started paying me back the money she owed, little by little. I watched her struggle through the first month. There were moments when I thought she was going to break. I could see it in her eyes when she came to visit, how she'd hesitate before asking for anything. But she didn't ask for help. She didn't ask for handouts. She was learning to stand on her own 2 feet, even though it seemed like the world was telling her she couldn't. One Saturday afternoon, she came by with a bag of groceries. The doorbell rang, and when I opened it, there she was, holding a bag of produce like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Dad," she said, smiling, "I thought I'd make dinner. You've been doing all the cooking since Mom died. Thought you might like a break." It was such a simple gesture, but it hit me harder than I thought it would. This wasn't the daughter who'd taken me for granted. This wasn't the daughter who had made me feel like a fool. This was a woman trying to take responsibility for her life. I let her in and we cooked together. No strings, no tension. Just the 2 of us in the kitchen, chopping vegetables and talking about her new job, her new place. She even mentioned therapy, how she was starting to see a counselor once a week. I could see the change in her, not just in her actions, but in the way she held herself. She was becoming someone I could respect again. And that was the moment I realized something I hadn't expected. Maybe she wasn't the person I thought she was. Maybe I had been so focused on her mistakes that I hadn't seen the person she was capable of becoming. We sat down to eat that night, and as we clinked our glasses together, I realized that despite everything, I was proud of her. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start, and in that moment, I saw a glimmer of the daughter I always hoped she would be. Things were going better than I expected. Audrey was sticking to her plan, working hard, keeping her head down. For the first time in a long time, I felt like maybe we were heading in the right direction. But I knew better than to think it was all smooth sailing. People don't change overnight. Not like this. It didn't take long for her to face her first real test. A few weeks into her new job, I got a call from her late one night. It was a Saturday. "Dad, I need your help. It's about rent. My paycheck didn't come through and I'm short." Her voice was tight, thin with that familiar desperation I'd heard so many times before. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the phone. I'd been waiting for this. I knew it was coming. It was too soon for her to be standing on her own, and she'd hit the first roadblock. "Let me get this straight," I said, keeping my voice calm. "You've been working there for what, a month? And now, suddenly, you can't pay rent? What happened to all that responsibility you promised me?" There was a pause. I could almost hear her weighing her words. "It's not that simple, Dad. The system messed up. The direct deposit didn't go through. I'm really trying, okay?" The silence stretched between us. I wasn't buying it. I knew Audrey, and I knew her well enough to recognize when she was making excuses. But she also wasn't the girl who had tried to manipulate me before. She was trying, and that counted for something. But it wasn't enough. I sighed. "Audrey, I'm not going to fix your problems for you. You made a choice to live on your own, and I respect that. But you need to figure this out. And that means not running to me every time you hit a bump in the road." I understand," she said, her voice softer now. "I just thought maybe you could lend me a little, just until I get paid next week." I wanted to say no. I wanted to remind her of the ultimatum I'd given her. I wanted to let her struggle and face the consequences. But then I thought about everything she'd been through. She wasn't the same person who had tried to scam me a few months ago. She was trying to do better. All right, I said after a long pause. I'll help you this time. But this is the last time. No more handouts after this. You've got to be independent. You said you want to change. So show me you can. This is your chance to prove it. There was a silence on the other end of the line. Then, in a voice I hadn't heard in a long time, she whispered, "Thank you, Dad. I won't let you down." I hung up the phone, feeling a strange mix of pride and doubt. I was helping her, but at what cost? I wasn't sure if I was doing the right thing. But I knew one thing for sure. Audrey had just taken her first real step toward becoming the woman I always hoped she could be. But the real test, the one that would show me if she had truly changed, was still ahead. A few weeks passed, and I started to believe Audrey might actually be serious about turning things around. She stuck to her job, kept paying rent, and even started talking about her therapy sessions with the kind of pride I hadn't heard before. But, as always, the universe has a way of testing you when you least expect it. It was a Thursday evening when she called again. I had just sat down to watch the news, a glass of whiskey in hand, when the phone buzzed. Audrey's name lit up the screen, and I knew right away it wasn't a casual check-in. It wasn't the "just wanted to see how you're doing" kind of call. I braced myself as I answered. "What's up?" "Dad, I need to tell you something," she said, her voice strained. "There's been a mistake at work. They're letting me go." I felt a twist in my stomach. It wasn't that I didn't expect setbacks. I did. I knew things weren't going to be easy for her. But hearing it from her, hearing the uncertainty in her voice, brought back that familiar rush of anxiety. The same kind I'd had every time she'd gotten herself into trouble before. "How long have you known about this?" I asked, keeping my tone steady. "A few days," she admitted. "But I didn't want to tell you. I didn't want you to think I couldn't handle it." I could feel the shame in her voice, the old habit of hiding things from me. But it wasn't the same shame she used to hide behind. This time, there was something more honest about it. She wasn't trying to make excuses. She wasn't trying to manipulate me into fixing it. "So, what's your plan?" I asked, trying to keep my emotions in check. "I'm looking for something else, Dad. I'm really trying. I swear." She paused. "Can you help me just for a little while? Until I get something else?" I leaned back in my chair, thinking about all the times she'd come to me asking for help before, and all the times I'd been burned. Part of me wanted to say no. Part of me wanted to tell her to figure out on her own. She had to learn, right? But then I thought back to the dinner we'd shared, to the way she'd looked at me with a little more respect in her eyes, the way she hadn't tried to take advantage of me for the first time in ages. I knew she wasn't the same person she'd been. "You've got 2 weeks," I said finally, my voice firm. 2 weeks to find something else. "I'll cover your rent for now, but this is the last time." "Got it." There was a long pause. "Thank you, Dad." "I won't let you down," she said, and I believed her. I hung up, and for the first time in a while, I felt a glimmer of hope. But deep down, I knew Audrey wasn't out of the woods yet. She still had to prove to herself, and to me, that she could keep going on her own. And that, I realized, was the hardest part of all. 2 weeks came and went. I knew Audrey wasn't going to sit around waiting for a miracle. At least, I hoped she wouldn't. But I also knew she wasn't someone who liked asking for help, not unless she was desperate. And desperation changes people. I'd seen it in her before. She called me on a Monday morning. The kind of call you dread receiving when you've already given someone a second chance. It was early, too early for her to be calling unless it was serious. "Dad," she said, her voice shaky. I couldn't find anything. I've been looking, but I just don't know what to do now." I could feel the weight of her words. She wasn't just calling to vent or complain. She was asking for help. Again, I let the silence hang there for a moment, feeling the pull of old habits, the urge to help, to fix things, to swoop in and save her. But I'd been down that road too many times before. Audrey had to learn the consequences of her actions. I'd already given her the 2 weeks she asked for. Now it was time for her to face the music, All right, I said finally, my voice steady though my heart wasn't. You've got one more week. 1 week to prove you can handle this on your own. After that, you're on your own, Audrey. No more handouts. The line went silent for a beat, and then I heard her take a deep breath. Okay, I understand. I'll figure it out. And that was it. No excuses. No promises. Just the harsh reality of what she needed to do. And for the first time in a long while, I felt like she was finally facing the truth. The truth that she was no longer a little girl who could rely on her father to bail her out. She was an adult now, and the world wasn't going to hand her anything. It wasn't easy to say those words. I'd never been one to turn my back on family, especially not my daughter. But sometimes the hardest thing to do is the right thing. And as I hung up the phone, I couldn't help but think. This time it was up to Audrey. No more safety nets. No more excuses. The next step was hers to take. A week passed, and things went quieter again. Audrey didn't call. She didn't show up on my doorstep, asking for help. It was the longest stretch of silence I'd had in a while, and it made me nervous. Was she giving up? Had I pushed her too far? Or was she really out there trying to make it on her own? I told myself not to get too involved, not to second-guess my decision. She needed to learn how to stand on her own. But in the back of my mind, I couldn't help but wonder if I'd made the right call. Then, one evening, the doorbell rang. I didn't expect it to be her. Audrey had always had a way of slipping in unnoticed when she needed something. But this time, I heard a knock instead. Firm. No hesitation. I opened the door to find Audrey standing there, looking different somehow. Her face wasn't tired or strained. She looked confident. Her eyes weren't downcast, like they usually were when she was ashamed or asking for help. She was standing tall, shoulders back, and there was something in her hands. "Dad," she said, holding out an envelope. "I got the job. I start Monday." It took a second for it to register. I glanced down at the envelope in her hands. "You what?" "I got a job. A real one. Not just a temp gig or something part-time. Full-time. It's with a startup, and they're paying well. I signed the contract today. I didn't need your money. I figured it out." My heart skipped a beat, and I tried to mask my surprise. "You really did it?" I said, my voice a little unsteady. "Yeah," she replied, her voice firm but soft. "I did. I've been looking, working my ass off. I found something. I wanted to show you that I'm serious about this, about changing." I didn't know what to say at first. The pride swelled up in me, but I wasn't sure if I could let myself feel it. Not yet. She had to prove herself, right? But as I looked at her, really looked at her, I saw something in her that hadn't been there before. A spark. Determination. She was standing there, holding the fruits of her labor. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't just looking at my daughter. I was looking at an adult who was figuring it out one step at a time. I took a deep breath and finally spoke. "Well, I'll be damned. I'm proud of you, Audrey." Her face softened, and she gave a small smile. "Thanks, Dad. I don't want to disappoint you again." "I know you won't," I said, feeling a lump form in my throat. "You've got this." And for the first time, I truly believed it. The weeks after Audrey's breakthrough job offer were filled with cautious optimism. She settled into her new role, showing up on time, working hard, and keeping her promises. The quiet pride I felt in her was something I hadn't allowed myself to feel for years. But, of course, life wasn't done testing her, or me. It happened one Friday evening. I was in the garage, tinkering with an old project of mine, when my phone rang. I saw Audrey's name, and for a second, I felt a jolt of anxiety. It was after hours. Why was she calling me now? I answered. "What's going on?" "Dad," she said, her voice tight. I need to talk to you about something." I could hear the stress in her tone. "What's wrong?" I messed up," she admitted, and I could hear the shame in her voice. "I lost the job. They let me go." I froze. Everything inside me tightened, and I had to take a moment to breathe. I'd known this day might come, but that didn't make it any easier. "Why?" I asked. keeping my voice as steady as I could. I wasn't prepared for the pressure, she explained, each word heavy. I thought I could handle it, but I couldn't. I was late twice last week, and they said I wasn't meeting expectations. I don't know what to do now, Dad. It felt like I'd been punched in the gut. All that progress, all that hard work, gone in a heartbeat. I couldn't tell if it was just bad luck, or she'd lost sight of the lesson. Had she learned enough to handle failure, or would she crumble under the weight of it? I rubbed my temples, trying to calm myself. Audrey, listen to me. You've been through worse, okay? You're not the same person who walked out of here months ago. This isn't the end, but it's up to you to decide how you handle it. I could hear her take a shaky breath on the other end of the line. I don't want to keep failing you. I closed my eyes, letting her words settle. I wasn't about to give up on her now. You haven't failed me. You've fallen. We all fall. But it's what you do next that matters. I want to see you get up, Audrey. Show me you can get up and keep fighting. There was a long pause before she spoke again. I don't know if I can. You can. You just have to believe it. I said, my voice firm. I'm not giving up on you, and I don't want you to give up on yourself. Get back up. Find a way. You've done it before. I will, Dad, she said, and this time her voice sounded stronger. I know you will. The next few days were rough. Audrey stayed in her apartment, and I didn't hear from her much. I knew she had to work through this on her own. I wasn't about to call her and check in every hour. This was her battle now, and she had to fight it. But the silence was like a weight pressing down on me. It felt like we were back where we started, stuck in the same loop. Then, out of nowhere, I got a text from her. Just 3 words. I found something. My heart skipped a beat. I didn't know whether to feel relieved or anxious. A part of me wanted to protect her from more disappointment, to shield her from what I knew was still a harsh world. But I also knew that she wasn't going to get anywhere unless she kept pushing forward, kept trying. She called later that evening. I got a new job, Audrey said, her voice a little steadier. It's not exactly what I wanted, but it's something. I start Monday. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Good for you, Audrey. I'm proud of you. It's just a temp gig, but they said if I do well, there's a chance it'll turn into something full-time. Her words were more confident, but there was a hint of something else. Relief, maybe, or fear. Fear that it might not work out, that she might be starting from scratch again. Listen, I said, try and keep my tone light. It's a step, and steps are what count. You're not starting over. You're building from what you've learned. That's progress. I know, she replied. It's just, it feels like 1 step forward, 2 steps back, you know? I understood exactly what she meant. It's a frustrating thing, always feeling like the ground beneath you isn't solid enough, like the next fall is right around the corner. But I wasn't going to let her see my own doubts. You're still climbing, Audrey. Don't forget that. The only way forward is up 1 step at a time. And that's enough. It'll be enough for now. She didn't respond immediately, but I could hear the shift in her voice. It wasn't the defeated girl I'd heard before. This time, it was a sound of someone who had tasted failure, but wasn't giving up. She was still fighting. I won't let you down, Dad, she said, and for the first time in a while, I really believed her. I know you won't, I said, feeling something inside me loosen. This wasn't the end of her struggle, but it was a sign that she wasn't quitting, and that was worth more than any paycheck or job title. Weeks passed, and Audrey seemed to be settling into her new job. It wasn't the perfect gig, but she was showing up every day, putting in the effort. I watched from a distance, keeping my distance, but always keeping an eye on her progress. She didn't ask for anything, not even for a check-in. And honestly, that was both a relief and a little unsettling. I knew she was trying. I could see that. But I also knew that life had a way of throwing curveballs when you least expected it. And as much as I wanted to believe everything was fine, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were both holding our breath, waiting for the next misstep. Then it came. One Saturday morning, I got another call. Audrey's name flashed on my phone, and this time I didn't hesitate. Something in my gut told me this wasn't going to be a good conversation. Dad, her voice was tense. I need to talk to you. Something happened. What's wrong? I asked, already bracing myself. I messed up. I lost my job. My stomach dropped. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I'd been waiting for this, but that didn't make it any easier to hear. Why? What happened? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. They said I wasn't pulling my weight. I was late a couple of times, and I think I upset one of the supervisors, she explained, her words coming out in a rush. I tried to fix it, but it was too late. They let me go this morning. I didn't know what to say. I wanted to be angry. I wanted to tell her that she'd failed again, that this was her own fault, but I didn't. I couldn't, because I knew, deep down, that this was a real test. She'd fallen again, but the real question was whether or not she would get back up. All right, I said, my voice quiet. What's your plan? I don't know, she admitted, her voice small. I've got some savings, but I don't know how long that'll last. I feel like I'm starting all over again. Then start over. You've done it before, and you'll do it again. But this time, you have to take responsibility for it. You have to own it, Audrey. No more excuses. I will, she said softly, almost to herself. I'll find something. I won't give up. I could hear the resolve in her voice. It was different this time. It wasn't a promise to me. It was a promise to herself. Good. I said, my tone steady. Then get back to it. And when you find that next step, you'll know you earned it. She didn't say much after that, but there was something in her silence that spoke volumes. She was hurting, yes, but she was also willing to face it, and that made all the difference. As I hung up, I couldn't help but feel a small flicker of hope. This wasn't the end. It was just another chapter in her story. And I was starting to believe that she was finally ready to write the next one on her own. A week passed after Audrey lost her second job. It was quieter than before, the kind of silence that makes your skin crawl. I didn't hear from her much, but I knew she was out there, trying again, and that, in itself, was progress. At least, that's what I kept telling myself. I didn't call. I didn't want to push her. She had to figure this out on her own, just like I'd told her. But as the days went by, I began to wonder if I was just waiting for her to call and ask for help. Was she out there, swallowing her pride, or had she given up? I couldn't stand the thought of her giving up. Then, on the following Sunday, she showed up at my door. I hadn't seen her in days, and when I opened it, I was surprised to find her standing there with a small suitcase by her side, looking different, not defeated like I had expected. No. She had a quiet confidence about her that caught me off guard. Dad, she said, her voice steady. I've been thinking a lot. About everything. I stepped aside to let her in, my heart already racing. Come on in. What's going on? She set the suitcase down by the door and looked me straight in the eye. I'm done with all the excuses. I'm not going to keep falling back on you every time something goes wrong. I've been getting by on the bare minimum, and I'm tired of it. I want more than this. I nodded, watching her carefully. What are you saying? I've got a place, she said, her voice a little firmer now. I found an apartment. It's small, but it's mine, and I've got a plan. I'm not going to sit around waiting for things to magically get better. I've been waiting for the world to hand me something, and it's not going to. I have to make it happen. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She wasn't asking for money. She wasn't asking for a bailout. She was telling me, with full conviction, that she was taking control of her life. It was the kind of change I've been waiting to see in her, and now it was here. That's a big step, Audrey, I said, trying to keep my voice even. But I'm proud of you. You're taking responsibility. That's what matters. She gave me a small smile, but there was something more in her eyes than just gratitude. There was a spark of something else. Determination, maybe. Or maybe just the first real sense of ownership over her life. I'm not asking for help this time, she said softly. I'm doing this on my own. It was the first time I'd heard her say it like that. The first time I really believed it. And for the first time, I felt like my daughter was finally stepping into the person I'd always known she could be. I believe you, I said, feeling something warm stir in my chest. And this time, I think you're ready. And as she left that day, carrying her suitcase with more than just clothes inside, carrying hope, determination, and the beginnings of her future, I knew one thing for sure. This was a turning point. The point where Audrey stopped running from her problems and started facing them head on. And that was the most important thing of all. It had been a month since Audrey moved into her new apartment. I hadn't heard much from her, which, to be honest, was a bit of a relief. It meant she was handling things on her own, just like she promised. She was building her own life, making her own way. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like she was actually taking responsibility for her actions. I spent most of my days the same as usual. Tinker in the garage, reading, the quiet hum of life moving forward. But then one evening, the phone rang. It was Audrey. I wasn't expecting it, and I could feel a twinge of unease in my chest as I answered. "Hey, kid, what's up?" "Hi, Dad," she said, her voice sounding more nervous than usual. I need to talk to you about something." I could hear the uncertainty in her tone. It was a familiar sound, the kind of hesitation that made my stomach tighten. "What's going on?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. I've been doing a lot of thinking," she said, and there was a long pause. "And I think I need to apologize. For everything. For how I treated you. For the lies. For the manipulation. I didn't know how to handle everything, and I hurt you in the process. I never should have done that." Her words hit me like a wave. I wasn't sure what to say at first. I'd heard her apologize before, but this time it felt different. This wasn't just some surface-level apology. She wasn't asking for forgiveness. She was owning up to her mistakes. And that was something I hadn't expected from her. "Audrey," I started, my voice a little hoarse. "I'm not going to lie. What you did hurt. A lot. But you're doing the right thing now. And that's what matters. You're learning, you're growing. That's what I've been waiting for. I know, Dad. And I want you to know I'm not the same person I was a few months ago. I've been going to therapy, working on myself, and it's hard, but I'm doing it." I could hear the sincerity in her voice, and for the first time, I realized just how far she had come. She wasn't just telling me what she thought I wanted to hear. She was telling me the truth. "I'm proud of you, Audrey," I said, the words feeling heavier than they ever had before. "I'm proud of who you're becoming." There was a quiet moment. Then she spoke again, her voice soft. "I don't want you to think I've forgotten how you helped me, even when I didn't deserve it. I know you've been there for me, and I don't want to take that for granted anymore." I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. "You won't. You don't have to prove anything to me. Just keep being the person you're becoming. That's enough." The call ended with a long silence, but it wasn't an uncomfortable one. It was like we were both finally letting go of the past, of the mistakes, the hurt, and looking toward the future. And as I sat there, holding the phone, I realized something. This wasn't the end of her journey. It wasn't even the final step, but it was a turning point. Audrey had reached a place where she could see the person she wanted to be, and that was more than I could have hoped for. I hung up the phone and sat in the quiet, feeling for the first time in a long while that things might just turn out okay. It's funny how you can go years without truly understanding someone, even when you think you know them inside and out. For so long, I thought I understood Audrey, my daughter, but the truth is, I didn't really see her at all. Not the way I needed to. I had been holding on to the past, thinking she would always be the same person who betrayed me. But in the last few months, she had proven me wrong. I didn't expect to feel this proud of her, but I did. It wasn't just that she was making it on her own. It was the way she was doing it. Honestly, with a newfound strength I hadn't seen before. Audrey wasn't just surviving anymore. She was living, really living. And then came the call that confirmed everything. It was a Saturday afternoon. The sun was shining, and I was out in the yard, working on a project when my phone rang. It was Audrey. The call came through a little differently this time. It wasn't the usual "Dad, I need help" kind of call. This time, her voice was clear, confident. "Dad," she said, her words carrying the weight of something important. "I wanted to tell you first. I've been offered a full-time position at my job. They said they want to promote me." I froze, the words taking a moment to register. "Wait, you're telling me you're getting promoted?" I asked, my voice filled with disbelief, not because I didn't think she could do it, but because it was all happening so fast. Yeah, she replied, and I could hear the smile in her voice. I've been working hard. They noticed, and now they want to step up. I didn't expect this, but I'm ready for it, and I owe a lot of it to you for not giving up on me. Her words hit me in a way I didn't expect. It wasn't just that she'd made it through. It was that she was taking ownership of her success. She had earned this. She had earned every step of it. I'm proud of you, Audrey, I said, my voice thick. You did this. You made it happen. There was a quiet moment, and I could hear her taking a breath, like she was absorbing what I'd said. I've learned so much from you, Dad. You've always taught me to keep going, no matter how hard things get. I used to think I couldn't do it on my own, but I'm doing it now, and I owe you everything for showing me how. I could feel the lump in my throat, the one I hadn't expected to be there. This wasn't just about the job. It was about the lessons she'd learned. It was about how far she'd come. And most importantly, it was about how we had both changed. I don't think I could be prouder of you if I tried. I said, my words finally finding their place. You're proving to yourself that you can do anything you set your mind to. She let out a soft laugh. I guess we both are. We stayed on the phone for a little while longer, talking about her next steps, her plans, the future. But when we hung up, something in me shifted. This wasn't just the end of one chapter. This was the beginning of something new. A new relationship built on trust, honesty, and respect. Audrey had finally found her way, and I was proud to say that, for the first time in a long while, I had found mine too. It was early spring when Audrey invited me over for dinner. For months had passed since that first night of deception, her stage fall in my living room. And now, here she was, standing tall, independent, and ready to face me on equal footing. I walked into her apartment and was struck by the sight. Clean counters, neatly stacked books, the soft glow of a lamp she must have picked out herself. It wasn't much, but it was hers, and that mattered more than anything. Dad, she said warmly, come in. I made roast chicken, just like Mom used to make. Those words hit me. For so long, her manipulations had twisted the memory of her mother into a weapon. But tonight, it felt different. It wasn't about guilt. It was about honor, about carrying something good forward. We sat at the table, and as we ate, she told me about her job, about paying down her debt, about therapy. Her eyes didn't dart away anymore. She looked me straight in the face, unflinching. For the first time, I wasn't staring at a liar or a con artist. I was staring at a woman who had been forged by fire and had come out stronger. At the end of the meal, she pushed an envelope across the table. This is the last of what I owed you, she said softly. It's not just money. It's my way of saying, I won't ever put you through that again. I looked at her, the envelope sitting heavy between us. My mind flashed back to that night. Her fake cries, her attempt to bribe paramedics, her threats of blackmail. That was the old Audrey. This moment was my victory. Not because she'd failed, but because she'd risen. I didn't take the envelope right away. Instead, I raised my glass and she raised hers. The clink of crystal filled the room, sharp and final. To lessons learned, I said. She smiled, a tear rolling down her cheek. And to second chances. In that instant, I felt the weight lift off my chest. The revenge I had promised myself back on New Year's Eve wasn't about crushing her. It was about forcing her to face the truth. And she had. She'd rebuild herself piece by piece. That was my revenge, not punishment, but transformation. She thought she could control me, but in the end, it was I who set her free. And as I left that night, the cool April air brushing against my face, I carried with me the final image I'd waited months to see. My daughter, standing in the doorway of her own home, no longer a manipulator, no longer my burden, but her own person, strong, steady, and unbroken. That was the justice I'd been waiting for. That was my victory. If you like this story, please like this video. Subscribe to the channel and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the right.